Bill Gates stares across a sea of computers, his empire. In 1997, he owned 95% of every screen on Earth. He was the king of software. But 20 years later, someone inside his own company would quietly outplay him and even surpass Apple's Steve Jobs. And the man they never saw coming built the system that ruled them both. But to see how the world's most powerful founder lost his own throne, we need to rewind. 1997. Apple is 3 weeks from bankruptcy. Apple's heartbeat is fading. Its stock is trash. Meanwhile, up in Redmond, Washington, Bill Gates is running the closest thing Earth has seen to a digital dictatorship. Windows owns 95% of the world. Then, the prodigal showman returns. Jobs walks back into Apple like a prophet raised from the dead. He doesn't rebuild, he resurrects. The iPhone arrives, and suddenly technology isn't about function, it's about faith. Gates built the empire, Jobs built the religion. And for a decade, the world believed the war was over. The engineer king versus the evangelist. Bill Gates and Steve Jobs weren't just competitors. They were opposites. Gates was the engineer king, cold, calculated, ruthless. He didn't need you to love Windows. He needed you to need it. His strategy was simple. Own the operating system, license it to everyone, and make it impossible to escape. It was a toll road. Every computer that ran Windows paid Gates a fee. By the late 90s, he controlled 95% of all personal computers. It was the most dominant monopoly in tech history. Steve Jobs, he was the evangelist. He didn't sell computers, he sold a religion. Jobs believed in vertical integration. Control every piece of the experience, the hardware, the software, the retail stores. Apple products weren't just tools, they were status symbols. Beautiful, expensive, exclusive. Jobs built a walled garden, and if you wanted in, you paid a premium. His customers didn't just buy iPhones, they joined a tribe. Two completely different playbooks. Gates built an empire on logic and distribution. Jobs built his on desire and design. But here's the thing. Both strategies had fatal flaws. Gates' monopoly made Microsoft rich, but it also made them slow and hated. Jobs' walled garden created fanatics, but it limited Apple's reach. And that's where the story gets interesting, because the man who would eventually beat them both was watching, learning, waiting. But first, let's talk about the moment when the entire world thought Microsoft was finished. If this kind of strategic deconstruction is your thing, where we don't just tell stories, we decode the blueprint behind billion-dollar moves, consider subscribing. This is The Wealth Project. Subscribe and follow now to learn the rules the rich play by. The fall of the gods. Let's check the scorecard, because this is where the truth lives. In 1997, Microsoft's market cap was over $200 billion. Apple, $3 billion. Apple was dying. Steve Jobs had just returned to save the company, and Bill Gates actually had to loan Apple $150 million just to keep them alive. Then 2007 happened. Jobs walked on stage and pulled out the iPhone. It wasn't just a phone. It was a supercomputer in your pocket, and it changed everything. Apple's stock exploded. By 2011, when Jobs passed away, Apple had become the most valuable company on Earth. The walled garden had won. But while everyone was watching Apple print money, Microsoft was in trouble. They missed mobile. They missed social media. Windows phones flopped so hard they became a punchline. The Zune was dead on arrival. Wall Street analysts were writing obituaries. Tech blogs declared Microsoft irrelevant. The empire Gates built was crumbling. And that's when Microsoft made a decision that seemed boring at the time, but would change everything. In February 2014, they promoted a quiet engineer named Satya Nadella to CEO. Nobody cared, but they should have. Because Nadella saw something nobody else did. He realized the war Gates and Jobs were fighting was over. The future wasn't about desktops or phones. It was about the cloud. And while Apple kept selling iPhones, Nadella quietly built a second empire inside Microsoft that would eventually dwarf everything Jobs ever created. But here's where it gets wild. Because Nadella didn't just copy Gates or Jobs. He did something neither of them would have ever done. By the way, if you've been enjoying how we're peeling back the layers of strategy most people overlook, drop a like. And let me know in the comments, whose playbook do you think is the most strategic? Gates, Jobs, or the new player, Nadella? The quiet coup. Gates built a toll road with Windows. Nadella built a new, bigger toll road with Azure, Microsoft's cloud platform. Every company that wanted to run their business online had to pay Microsoft. Same strategy, bigger game. But then Nadella did something Gates never would have done. He opened the gates. He put Microsoft Office on iPads. Old Microsoft would never have done that. But Nadella said, I don't care what device you use, just pay us for the software. Azure, Microsoft's invisible empire, turned every business, every app, every database into a tributary. It didn't matter what device you used. You still paid Microsoft to exist. Then he bought LinkedIn for $26 billion, the entire professional world. Then he bought GitHub for $7.5 billion, the home of every software developer on Earth. Microsoft, the company that once called open source software cancer, now owned the heart of the open source community. And here's the genius part. Nadella embraced open source. He stopped fighting Apple over phones and started fighting Amazon for the cloud. And he won. By 2018, Microsoft's market cap overtook Apple's for the first time in years. The scorecard had flipped. Nadella fused Gates' control with Jobs' ecosystem thinking and applied it to the one battlefield that mattered: enterprise software and cloud computing. While Apple kept selling luxury hardware to consumers, Microsoft became the invisible infrastructure powering the entire internet. The numbers prove it. In 2014, when Nadella took over, Microsoft's cloud revenue was almost nothing. By 2025, Microsoft's intelligent cloud division generates over $90 billion a year. That's more than Apple makes from the Mac, iPad, and Apple Watch combined. Nadella didn't just save Microsoft. He built a money printing machine that runs in the background of every business on Earth. So Gates had the monopoly, Jobs had the cult, but Nadella, he had both. And that brings us to today, because what's happening right now proves why Nadella's strategy was the smartest move in tech history. The Empire Reborn. Nadella fused Gates' control with Jobs' vision and played the long game. While others chased quarterly headlines, Nadella was quietly stacking decades. The result? A company once mocked as outdated now prints $90 billion a year from its cloud empire, more than Apple makes from every iPad, Mac, and Watch combined. Gates built the fortress. Jobs built the cult. Nadella built the system. The fortress can fall, the cult can fade, but the system survives every storm. Because real wealth isn't about the product, it's about positioning. It's not about being seen, it's about being necessary. That's Nadella's move, the invisible empire play. And it's the same move the old money dynasties used for centuries. The Rockefellers didn't just sell oil, they sold the infrastructure of modern life. Now, Microsoft does the same, only this time the oil is data. And you've just seen how the invisible man beat the icons. The next billion-dollar play is one click away. Keep playing smarter with The Wealth Project. Pick our latest insight or a curated favorite right here on your screen.